Hi, there's some modest ideas on how we should respond to people saying no to war on Iran at this point. Because when you listen closely to the loudest voices making that case, many of them, not all, fall into one of three categories: corrupt, clueless, or compassionately confused. And they're not operating in a vacuum. There are no shortage of talking heads in Western media insisting that anything other than the immediate cessation of this military campaign would be a strategic and political and humanitarian disaster. And some will call us warmongers, which is silly because no one wants war. Iranians have simply watched every other option be tried for 47 years, and the result has been more atrocities. So let's look at the three categories that dominate the loudest no to war voices and how and if we should respond. First, the corrupt. These are regime agents and beneficiaries of the Islamic Republic, and sadly some Western left-wing activists who are effectively campaigning for this despotic regime to survive. They march in cities like Toronto carrying placards of Ali Khamenei and the flag of the Islamic Republic, and in effect, they're with the terrorists. So in terms of any intellectual response, we best dismiss them and just move on. Second, the clueless. Let's call this the Javier Bardem cohort. People who reflexively say no to war because it sounds virtuous and morally pure. And often because opposing anything associated with Trump or Netanyahu must automatically be the righteous position. This is activism driven by slogans and hashtags and chants and almost no context about the 47-year nightmare Iranians have been living under. Mr. Bardem had a global stage at the Oscars. Imagine if he'd used those precious seconds to mention the tens of thousands murdered by the Islamic Republic regime just 2 months ago. But of course, he didn't. Now, some may simply be uninformed. It may be worth trying to reach them. But finally, the compassionately confused, the group that acknowledges that the regime in Iran is brutal, but believe this war must be worse. They see bombs falling and conclude that opposing the war is the compassionate position. But regrettably, the options are not war or otherwise peace. The reality in Iran is war versus the status quo. And the status quo is a regime that arrests, tortures, executes, and shoots protesters in the streets, and is already doing so again right now. And why would it need to shut down the internet and keep its own citizens in the dark? So to this third category, the message can be simple. The status quo is not an option. Iran was already in a war against a theocracy. Millions of Iranians have been begging the world for help against a regime that has about the support of 15% of the population, and that was before the massacres of this year. So the real response is, what can possibly be done to help Iranians end this regime with urgency?